everybody for coming this evening. We have a full agenda tonight. We're going to have our essay contest winners read their essays first. Then we're going to have Mr. Seither talk about his Civil War ancestors. Then we're going to finish the evening with a business meeting, which I'll try to keep brief because we're going to be here a while. So, having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Martha, who's going to introduce our essay winners.
These are the winners of the contest, and we'll have a check for you. Who has those? Okay. All right. So, Kennedi Kramer, we'll start with you. And your paper was on your grandfather's business? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't read this word. Is it
I
cattle
wrote that. She
business?
did it.
Yeah. Is that what it is? Cattle business? Oh, great. Okay. Then when she's finished, we'll have another one.
Vince J. Rawl Jr. was born on October 20th, 1946. When he was young, his family moved to a farm on Persimmon Grove. He has an older sister, Pat, and 6 younger brothers, Bob, Dave, Tom, Greg, Bernie, and Mike. My grandma, Barbara L. Brown, was born on February 26, 1946, and grew up 2 houses away. She had 2 older sisters, Mary and Judy. They all hung out and went fishing and frog gigging together. It all started when Grandpa was 12. He wanted his own cattle. He bought his first cows in 1960. He was responsible for taking care of them every day before and after school. He was involved in 4-H and did electrical and woodworking projects. Grandpa went to Bishop Brossart High School for 4 years. He did work for his book fees, tuition, and lunch money. This was the only way he could attend a Catholic high school. He had to walk about 7 miles home every day. Grandma went to Campbell County High School. She had to come home every night and have dinner ready for her family. They dated some in high school and were married on August 5th, 1967. My mom, Christy L. Rawl, was born August 20th, 1968. He sold motor oil and farmed to make money. In 1970, he got a job with Farm Credit Service as a loan officer. Grandpa worked for them until November of 2001. He retired as a senior officer and manager. After almost 32 years of service, at the age 55, he planned to farm and also started California Cattle Company, which was an order business and selling service for area beef farming. Shortly after, the Kentucky Cattle Association called and asked if Grandpa would be interested in becoming a translator for the newly formed Kentucky Beef Network. He did this for about 6 years. In 1969, Grandpa and Grandma bought a 101-acre farm in southern Kemp County. The farm had no ponds. He built 6 ponds on the farm, and Grandpa had been the sole bookkeeper for the last 45 years. They also purchased their first tractor It was a 1949 Alice Chalmers model WD. His first cattle were heifer Holsteins, crossbred cows, and a heifer bull. And the very first two mama cows were bought from my dad's parents, Leonard and Ona Mae Kramer. They grew their herd to about 20 mama cows and bred them to have babies to sell. They also had a baby boy in April 26, 1971. His name was Gregory V. Raw. In 1975, Grandma and Grandpa and his brother Greg and his wife Millie joined in a farming business together. They grew tobacco, corn, soybeans, and hay. It was a joint cow-calf operation including about 50 mamas. The calves would be born in the winter time. This was really hard for the calves and my grandparents because it was always so cold. But this made a better profit because they were sold in the spring. Grandpa said they even had a couple sets of twin calves. Once a mama calf died, so he skinned the dead calf and tied the skin around one of the twins. The mama smelled her calf and let the twin nurse. Basically, she adopted this calf as her own. In 1981, Grandpa and his brother started buying and selling market hogs. They purchased about 150 piglets at a time. They weighed about 40 to 50 pounds. They raised them until they were approximately 250 pounds. They were fed a corn and soybean mixture. They bought and sold 450 pigs a year. When the market dropped, they decided to get out of the hog business. The hog barns are now used to store tractors and equipment for the farm. In 1982, my grandpa sold the mama cows and started a backgrounding operation. He was buying steer calves from the stockyards. These calves weighed approximately 550 pounds. They were fed grain and contained 1/3 ground corn, 1/3 soy hull bean pellets, and 1/3 corn. Gluten. The hay was brown bales wrapped with high moisture. The bales contained alfalfa orchard grass or red covered orchard grass. They also grazed the pastures. This was done for approximately 110 to 120 days. When the steers weighed about 850 pounds, they were trucked back to the same stockyards to be sold. Grandpa usually bought and sold them in Maysville, Flemingsburg, or Owington, Kentucky. My grandpa was selling about 60 head of cattle at a time, which weighed about 52,000 pounds. This would fill a tractor trailer. The buyer would load the steers on the trailer and would truck them out west to a feeding lot. They would be fed to the weight of 1,250 pounds to 1,300 pounds. Then they would be harvested and sold to grocery stores and restaurants. In 2003, the marketing program changed from selling cattle to the stockyards to selling cattle on the internet. Grandpa installed a certified scale. This was installed, calibrated, and monitored by an employee of the Kentucky Department of Agriculture. He videos his cattle, submits it, and buyers watch the video and bid on his steers. The buyers usually send 2 tractor trailers to the farm to pick up the cattle. They are weighed on the certified scale and loaded on the trucks to be hauled out west to the feeding lots, repeating the same procedures to feeding, harvesting, and selling in the grocery stores and restaurants. Grandpa and his brother Greg sell approximately 600 head a year. You never know, at some point you may have eaten some of my grandpa's beef. Grandpa was very involved in the start-up of the Campbell County Beef Association. He worked closely with the Campbell County Extension Office and local farmers to create this program. To be in the program, a farmer is required to follow strict guidelines on feeding and vaccinating their cattle without using growth hormones or antibiotics. The beef is USDA inspected and vacuum packed. It will be boxed and sold to local families in need of meat for their freezers. Over the years, the operation has farmed about 425 acres of land, some owned and leased. They have sold over 16,000 steers, 5,000 hogs, and purchased 14 tractors and various farm equipment. At this time in their lives, they are ready to slow down, but will keep a few cattle on the farm. They plan to travel to bluegrass festivals and other points of interest in their fifth-wheel camper. My grandpa has served as a source of information for the farmers of Campbell County because he worked for the Kentucky Beef Network. He has worked with cattlemen across the state of Kentucky. He has gathered information for local farmers, stockyards, veterinary supplies, producers, and other cattlemen. He shares this information with cattle producers to help others improve their beef operation.
I would stand outside and fill my lungs up and hold my breath and go in. The smoke was punishing. I grabbed what I thought was a woman's arm and she did not budge. Walter Raleigh, a busboy. This quote describes an event that would change lives forever and will go down in history as the third worst nightclub fire. This is known as the Beverly Hills Supper Club fire. The Beverly Hills Supper Club was a nightclub in Southgate, Kentucky that was founded by a man known as P.H. Smith. However, this fire wasn't the first problem that occurred with this nightclub, even if it was the worst. It had a long history before the fire and an interesting start. P.H. Smith, the founder of the nightclub, wasn't always a man of elegance and style. In fact, he was quite the criminal. He was sent to prison a few times, and after he got released, he decided to buy a hotel on Monmouth Street in Newport, Kentucky. He named it the Glen Hotel after his son. The hotel was used as a hideout for organized criminals that were trying to avoid getting arrested. After he bought the hotel, he got into even more trouble. He shot a police officer and spent 5 more years in prison. Staying in prison for 5 more years changed Pete, so when he got out of jail, he planned on creating a more elegant gambling venue with only the best food and entertainment. In the early 1930s, he bought a former speakeasy called the Old King Tut Castle, changed the whole interior of the building, and completely remodeled and refurbished it. He called it the Beverly Hills Supper Club. Pete eventually expanded the building and added a restaurant, dance floor, and casino. Mo Dallas was an early visitor of the club, but that wasn't all he was. He was a member of the Cleveland Four, one of the strongest syndicates around that time. Dallas liked what he saw and set his mind on trying to buy the club. He believed that it would be a great acquisition for the syndicate. He offered to buy the club from Pete, but he declined his offer. In 1936, a fire started at the club that destroyed the casino. There are many different reports that the Cleveland Port were responsible for that fire. No one ever officially figured out whether they were part of it or not. The cause of it remained a mystery. In April of 1937, Pete reopened the club. He called it the Beverly Hills Country Club. He made it even more elegant than the Beverly Hills Supper Club. The opening of the country club was only attended by governors and politicians. Pete may have felt like all of his problems were over, but we know that they weren't even near being done. In the summer of 1937, Pete was robbed by a group of armed men. After this, and the fact that he was continually harassed, he couldn't take it anymore. He almost felt as if he was going mad with everything that had been occurring, and he finally had to give in. On November 18th of 1940, Pete sold the club to the Cleveland Port. The Cleveland Port always ran the club in Seither. The Newport clubs kept finding it more complicated to hide illegal liquor sales and gaming activities. So much so that in the 1960s, every club in Newport was cleaned up and taken out of the city. Clubs didn't have as much popularity as they did in the past, and eventually Newport was also disinfected of illegal gambling. The Beverly Hills Country Club stood empty and vacant for nearly a decade, until Richard Schelling and his family took ownership of the club. In 1971, the Schellings opened the club again. The club became known as the showplace of the nation, and it also became a very popular place to celebrate weddings, parties, anniversaries, and graduation dinners. There are many theories of how the fire occurred. Many say it was just from faulty wiring, but there were many reports from former workers at the club, and even Schelling that said otherwise. Schelling talked about how he remembered men coming in and saying that they were maintenance workers that needed to work on the AC unit in the zebra room. He also remembered the men telling him to go away and come back later. David Brock, a busboy at the club, was eventually told that there was no AC unit in the zebra room. A woman named Shirley Turner, a waitress at the club, said that about a month before the fire, she saw two men threatening Schelling to sell them the club. She also received death threats on the phone to stay silent until after her upcoming wedding. The threats eventually stopped when she moved away and changed her name. She claims that she saw one of the maintenance men threatening Schelling to again sell the club to him. Turner said that she watched three people that didn't even work at the club wipe down the hallway, walls, and ceiling, leading to the cabaret room and the walls in the zebra room. She decided to ask them what they were doing, and they said, the electricians spilled chemicals that are being washed off so fumes wouldn't overcome the guests. After they said that, Turner thought to herself, I thought, wait a minute, these aren't our people. What does wiring have to do with spilled chemicals? It was May 28, 1977. There were about 2,400 to 2,800 people in the club. About half were in the cabaret room. At about 8:50, the comedy duo Jim Teeter and Tim McDonald were getting the crowd ready for John Davison, who was due to come out around 9:30. Around the same time as this, workers smelled smoke, and they traced it to the zebra room. The most likely cause of the fire was electrical problems. The Beverly Hills staff tried to extinguish the fire before they told the occupants to evacuate the building and before calling the fire department. The staff was never actually drilled on what to do during a fire. The interior finish of the north-south corridor increased the speed of the fire, and the flames spread. About 9:30, Walter Bailey, a busboy, got on the stage and announced that there was a fire and everyone needed to evacuate and get out. Nobody believed him and thought that it was part of an act. However, most employees and customers got out of the building. But by the time people in the cabaret room were aware of the fire, it was too late and they didn't have any time to escape. Rescuers and firefighters eventually came to help. The result of the horrible tragedy was 165 people dead and at least 200 people were injured, along with many hearts being broken and many lives being impacted from the loss of friends and family. I talked to a man named Art Lisi, my grandfather's cousin, about his thoughts on the fire. He had plenty because he witnessed the whole thing. He was there that night for Chapter 84 Baking Association with Kentucky Enterprise. Him and his fellow co-worker, Jim White, were handing out awards to the top students from area colleges and businesses. He sat at the head table that night because of his cause of being there, along with Senator Bob Todd. He said that he remembered people complaining that their eyes were burning, and when he went to address the problem with Schelling, he just said that it was from the air conditioning. Art also said that the wall he was sitting next to was getting very hot. You couldn't put your hands on the wall because it was so hot. Art was the assistant chief of the fire department for 17 years in Alexandria. He said that if he had used his fireman's instinct and chopped a hole in the wall, he would have discovered that there was a fire and then no one would have gotten hurt. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. He said that a woman came on stage and said that the building was on fire and they had to get out. They could only escape through the kitchen because some of the doors in the cabaret room were locked. there was only one way out of the cabaret room, many people remained trapped in the room and couldn't escape. Art said that he saw the door frame smoking when entering the kitchen to get out, and when he finally did, all he saw was flames coming every which way from the building, along with the fire departments everywhere. Shortly after, Art and his wife Peggy got out, the building collapsed to pieces. After most of the dead were dragged out of the building, Art said that him and his friends would cover them up with their large white jackets, and the woman would take off their sleds and place them over the dead. He went to go to his car, but he couldn't even get to because of all the fire trucks and emergency vehicles. Art and Peggy had to climb down the hill to I-471 and hitch a ride back to Alexandria with someone. Art was called to court by the FBI to talk about what happened that night. He talked about the complaints the guests were giving about their eyes burning and how hot the wall was behind where they were sitting. He also talked about how Schilling said not to worry about it. I asked Art whether he thought the police and floor were involved at all, and he said that he believes it was just due to bad electrical wiring. And after the interview, there was something that stuck out to me that he said. He said, "You couldn't forget the people screaming and yelling." The Beverly Hills Supper Club will always be remembered as a sensational building and a massive tragedy. However, this isn't the only way it will be remembered. There are memorials, memorial services, and markers. Wayne Dammer was a worker at the club for many years, and the banquet captained the night of the fire. Wayne has done many memorial services for the lives lost on that night. He also constructed a 25-foot cross that can be seen from I-471 as a memorial for the victims. On October 28, 2007, a highway marker was unveiled at the bottom of the hill, going to the entrance of the club. Robin Caraway and attorney Stan Trusley, who was the attorney that handled all litigation from the fire, spearheaded the marker. With everyone to commemorate who was killed that day, the club will never be forgotten. This fire has impacted the people of Campbell County, not just by all the lives that were lost, but also by all the fire precautions each one of us take each day. We have lighted signs that say exit in almost every public place to show where to go if fire occurs. We keep all the doors open or unlocked in public places because the doors that were locked in the cabaret room that kept people from escaping the burning building. We also have fire drills in schools, stores, or restaurants so we know what to do during a fire. We have all of these precautions because of the Beverly Hills Supper Club fire. This is the huge impact it has had on Campbell County, and this club will always be remembered as the showplace of the nation and the third worst nightclub fire in history.
Carlie, I have a check to you for $50. And this money is given in memory of Dr. Frank Steele, who taught history for 50 years, and he was also the first president of Northern Kentucky University, and he'd be proud of your essays. Good job. Jeffrey David Schultz was also a winner, but he could not be here tonight. So.
Thank you. The girls and their families want to leave now, you're certainly welcome to. We are going to have a guest speaker talking about the Civil War, but it's strictly up to you if you want to leave or not. It's up to you. Okay, at this time we're going to turn our meeting over to our guest speaker. Tonight's speaker is Mr. Tom Seither. He was a former principal of Bishop Rochester High School. And after he retired as principal, he discovered he had Civil War ancestors on the north and the south. So that's what he's going to discuss tonight, the Civil War ancestors from both sides of the Union.
I'm not sure if I can top what you just heard. I'll be the judge of that, or you'll be the judge of that. One thing, girls, you didn't do, you didn't put anybody to sleep. I will. Guarantee you. Okay, I apologize for some of my audio-visual materials here, but this is the best I could do. I do have it on a PowerPoint, but I didn't have the equipment for it, so you'll have to put up with what I have here and what I hope you can hear, so a little visual and a little audio together, if you will. As Ken said, I really didn't get into this until after I retired. In fact, it was really only about a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I was asked to present this for the first time over the Ramage Civil War Museum in Kenton County. But for years, I had this postcard on my can barely see it out there, I'm sorry for that, but I'll describe it. I had this postcard tacked to my bulletin board in my office. This was made by my father. He was a printer by trade. And I'd look at it. Depending on what was priority on my bulletin board, I'd move it around. After a while, it looked like it had been through the Civil War because all the thumbtacks that had been. So, and I really didn't get into it except to note that there's a George Seither on the left here, on my left, and he's in a blue uniform, and a Jacob Seither in a gray uniform, and each has his right arm amputated, missing. So, I mean, that should have spurred some special interest at that time immediately when I first received this from my father. He said, "This is your heritage." You know, so I thought I was doing it justice by putting it on my bulletin board, but I really didn't. The story is quite fascinating, and those of you who are Civil War aficionados, experts, if you will, perhaps, will understand how I'm just at the outset of my study, my research on the Civil War. So things that I say, I stand corrected if in your mind you know better. I hope that doesn't diminish what I say right now, but at any rate, because you didn't know my family. Okay, I am Campbell County all the way, except for where I live now. That's another part of the story. But I was born at Spears Hospital in Dayton, and a lot of you were, most probably. It no longer exists, but there should be a historical marker somewhere there for all of those who were born there. The Seither part of me was right here in Wilder, in the Wilder area. My mother was a Sanfus, and her family lived in Ross. Pete Sanfus had a farm from the top of the hill all the way to the river. His primary crop was strawberries in the springtime, and I remember ruining a lot of strawberries in my day as a youth because I didn't know how to pick, and I was supposed to do the carrier. I messed that up too, and he got mad. At any rate, some of you know what I'm talking about when it comes to strawberry picking. The story that I want to tell actually begins on this chart right about here, but I want to go back a little bit if you'll bear with me, and it's about as far back as I've gone. The Seither brothers, I just added this afternoon, a house divided, a phrase from a quote from various parts of the Bible, as well as something Abraham Lincoln used in his speech. I think it was in 1858, in his pursuit of the Senate seat in Illinois, and it became quite famous. A house divided. And it's been one of his most famous speeches, of which he has many. And I'll get into that as I proceed. The house divided. August the 1st, for lack of a different designation, is as far back as I've gone. He lived in southern Germany, Bavaria. Not sure of the town. And in the late 1700s, when Napoleon was doing his thing, marching through, I mean, Europe was in total upheaval. There was no organization to Europe at the time. There was no German Union, no Italians. They were all separated into little burgs and little principalities. But August the 1st, joined Napoleon as he came through southern Germany. I think he wanted to be with a winner. so why not? And to do that, because on this picture, I don't know if you can tell, but the Seithers at the time were short. In order to make the grade for what he wanted to do, and I think he had status in the community to perhaps give him a little edge, he stuffed cardboard in his shoes to make him a little taller so that he could qualify for cavalry. And he survived. I'm not sure the battle he was in, but he survived, went back to his hometown, or to his town, and had sons and daughters. August the 2nd was one of his sons. This is my relative, my great-great-great-grandfather, who decided in 1849 to immigrate to the United States as a result of all that was still going on in Europe. And by that I mean Austria in the south was trying to take over different parts back and forth, skirmishes, big wars, full force battles. Frederick Wilhelm IV in Prussia was trying to assert himself. In fact, he thought he should even resurrect something that by then most of Europe was no longer touting, the divine right of kings. Supposedly, some of the quotes in the Bible have been used for this, whereby Jesus said, you know, render unto Caesar what's Caesar's, and to God what's God's. And the royal families, the royalty of Europe, took that to heart and said, there's nobody else over us. We've got a divine right to do what we have to do. In fact, and everybody under us has no right, it cannot interfere with what we want to do. Well, anyhow, my point is, he tried his power move in the north. All of this got my great-great-great-grandfather excited, to the point, as Burgermeister of his little village in Bavaria, which was like a mayor of the town, had quite a bit of respect from the commercial people in the town and from the farmers. So if I get any water, my mouth gets dry. Can I ask Ken? Anyhow. So in 1849, it's probable that he became a fugitive, a political fugitive. He was either run out of town or he ran out of town. One way or the other, he got to a northern port with his wife, Jacobina Schultz was her maiden name, and his 4 children. And they made their way to New York, into Pennsylvania for a spell, where it's reported that he was ripped off, cheated out of some money. What little he brought with him, he may have had money in Germany, but a lot of that he left behind just so he could get out of the situation. Ultimately came through through Pennsylvania, thank you, and I do a lot better with wine, but that's fine. Came west with a lot of other Germans and settled in Campbell County, this area, with his 4 children. That was 1849 when this happened. I'm not sure exactly what year they got here, but he left Germany in 1849. His children at the time of their immigration were respectively, Jacob, who was 16, George, who was 13, Conrad, 7, and August the 3rd was 3 years old. So all boys. There was even thought to be an August in the middle here, but he died shortly after birth, so they had to keep August going. you'll note that the Seither lineage is filled with August all the way through. I don't know if that's a sign of their esteem for the Caesars of Europe or of Italy, but a lot of them. In fact, we run out down here, and I just recently told it a nephew of mine, they're expecting a child, and he's going to resurrect the name August. I don't know, that'll be about the 10th or the 12th one, I guess. But anyhow, Jacob, George, Conrad, August. These four are my great-great relatives. George is my great-great-grandfather. His older brother, Jacob, my great, and Conrad and August, the baby, are my great-great-uncles. The story is, in a nutshell, these three, when the war broke out, they enlisted in the army. But the interesting thing is, Jacob enlisted, the oldest, and fought for the South. The other three fought for the North. A house divided. I've been thinking about that, and a lot of what I will say tonight about a house divided is hypothesis on my part. And in fact, over the last week, I just thought of another possibility. I don't think it was so much a family separated, divided over the issues of states' rights, secession, slavery, or any of that. It did come down to some other rather simple things. In fact, one of them is geography. If you look at, how what states fought it was the South against the North. Kentucky was in the middle, a border state, but so there was a tug of war going on there, but the Seither brothers were in the north, right across from Cincinnati. How did George do what he did for the South? Bottom line is, George wasn't around in the north for very long. He left, got a job on a riverboat, plying up and down the Ohio, Mississippi, and even across to Cuba from time to time. When the war broke out, in fact, he was on his way back from Cuba to New Orleans. That was his home port. That's where he met a young lady, and that's where he stayed. The thought I had today was, I don't think that Jacob was, I think he was asserting himself. He was the oldest. And I think it was about sort of a dissatisfaction with his parents. Think about it. He's 16 when his father and his mother decide to locate to the United States of America, or America. A huge item. He's 16, he's got friends. I don't think he wanted to come over here. When they finally said, "You're going," and he came over, I think there was dissatisfaction, settling in. This area, and most of you know very well, that it was a very, very heavily influenced German area. To the extent that the German population stayed pretty much to themselves, from what I can understand, never even crossing the rivers in either direction if they didn't have to. So they stayed together. What language did they speak? German. My mother in Ross, Kentucky, went to St. Philip's. She went to St. Philip's grade school. When she was in grade school, the middle grades I think it was, somewhere I would estimate somewhere in the 20s, early 30s perhaps, there was a vote in the parish as to whether or not the school should be teaching in German or in English. And they decided, the parish wisely decided, that, you know, we're in America, the tongue here is English, let's go with that. But I know that when I went home, when I went to her house, Grandma and Grandpa, aunts and uncles all spoke German when they didn't want us to know what they were talking about. You guys remember some of that. So at any rate, kind of rushed ahead of myself a little bit, but the lineage, my lineage comes through George. He had 7 children, another August here. That's my great-great-grandfather. August married Carrie Wakehouse, and they had 3 children, Katie, Frank, and Henry. Henry was my grandfather. He married Catherine Wolfsorn, a rather Campbell County sounding name too. They had 5 children, Ed, Louis, my father, Clara, Hilda, and Joe, and these are my brothers and sisters. There were 6 of us, and I'm proud to say that I'm the oldest. Still living. I'm going to just tear this off. How about that? Okay. One of the things that intrigued me was this split in the family. Was this so unusual? I understand the dynamic of a border state. I thought I did. I think I do. And what was going on. Is this something that was really that unusual? And, you know, the Seither family was a rather simple family. My relatives all were privates going in and privates coming out. In the state of Kentucky, though, you'll recognize some of these names where there was a split in the family, and in these cases, I think there was a real split over the issues. Henry Clay had a son, James. He was a lieutenant with the Confederate States of America in their army. He had 3 others. I think they fought for the North. John Crittenden, senator from Kentucky. He had George, he was a CSA general. Thomas, a GAR general. Talk about family dinners. Seriously divided. Interesting about John Crittenden, I think maybe some of you will relate to this. Crittenden, a senator, was firmly convinced that he could, or that there could be a compromise before the Civil War. Everybody did. No, I don't think anybody thought it would come to war. But, you know, as things proceeded, heated up, that's what happened. Crittenden, though, proposed what was referred to as the Crittenden Compromise, that the southern states could keep their slaves. Lincoln was fine with that even. He was fine with that. I think morally he wasn't. But in terms of keeping the Union together, Lincoln said, so let it be. You guys, that's where states, or the slaves are. Keep them there, don't spread them out. That was the big issue, just taking them with you into other areas. Crittenden proposed this compromise, and the wording was such, I think, or the intention was, that it would become an amendment to the Constitution. And I forget the number of parts to it, but the final one was the one that I think did it in. And I'm paraphrasing when I give you this. But in the end, he said, or the amendment would have read, this can never, once passed, this can never be revisited again. So if that would have passed, we would have had slavery still to this day in the southern states. That's my take on it. Some of you might know that. The big one here, though, is Mary Todd Lincoln, our president's wife. Wow. Her father sired 16 children, 7 by his first wife, 9 by his second wife. So she had biological brothers and sisters and step brothers and sisters. You can't read this, but there is one interesting, one of her stepsisters married a fella, and Abraham Lincoln wanted to try to ensure that his wife's family stayed with the North. I think he understood that this fellow was most probably headed south to join up. So he offered him a top-level position in Washington, like a post office general's position. I'm not sure of that. It's something like that, though. He declined, went off to fight for the CSA, and died. And the account that I read, Lincoln was so upset. It's one of the few times that he was seen publicly crying because he had lost a brother-in-law. So the house divided. There are many instances of this, both very public and very not so public, such as the Seither family. So we weren't the only ones that were divided. And I don't think in the case of the Seither family, once again, that it was about the issues. This gives you a little breakdown, and again, I apologize for this ragtag item that I have up here, but Jacob enlisted in the CSA at the age of 28, shortly after the war began, 5/27/61, as a private in Company 1st Louisiana Infantry. George, Conrad, and August enlisted at ages 26, 19, and 15, respectively. These two lied about their age, but that was quite common. Documents were non-existent for the most part, so if you could walk up and look like you were a little older, fine, you're in. They all served in the Kentucky 23rd. I think that was an infantry, a regiment. So there are about 100, I think, in that regiment, if I understand the numbers correctly. They served together in most of the campaigns that they were in. Jacob, for the South, immediately went to serve on the Eastern Front. And in fact, on 7/1/62, so about a little over a year after he enlisted, he was wounded at the Battle of Malvern Hill, permanently disabled, and had his right arm removed. It was interesting to me too. I spent 2 years in pre-med. Roger, you didn't know that, did you? No. Okay. I could treat you. No. The medicine of the day. I mean, it was unreal. After a battle, which usually ended at sundown, they would go out, and those who had extremities that were involved with the wound, they would bring back and lop them off, usually if they had shattered bones, if they couldn't stitch them up somehow with crude needles. They would lop them off and just pile the leg or the arm on a pile for later burial, I guess. If they had a wound in the corporal section, the trunk of the body, most of the time they left them lie on the battlefield until they could get to them, because they considered them mortally wounded, and there was very little they could do, because the body at that point in time was, for all intents and purposes, unknown. What's going on inside? Doctors didn't know how to deal with hearts and brains and things like that. If you had a wound in those areas, you were usually a goner. And yet, the numbers are crazy. Out of the 600,000 to 800,000 people that died as a result of the Civil War, huge number of people. And the number, I'm not sure. I don't know that anybody is sure. 2/3 of them died from disease. Only 1/3 died from a bullet or shrapnel. 2/3 from disease. And last night, I don't know if you watched the rerun of Ken Burns, something stood out there. That farmers, when they came into these encampments, were the first usually to get sick. They were in close quarters. When they were at home, they were spread out, didn't gather much. And so bacterial infections, viral infections, which they had no idea about, that these little beasties could cause diseases, they would spread through the camp. And they said that they woke up in the morning to the coughs, the sound of coughing throughout the camp, because a lot of it, these infections were lung types of things, or the breathing tract. So anyway, threw that in. I saw that last night. It's being rerun. It's very, very interesting. These are some of the battles they were in. I'm going to go over here real quickly. But not sure the battles except for Malvern Hill, where Jacob was wounded, and that was actually his last battle. He was convalescent for most of the rest of the war. George was wounded, and at the Battle of New Hope Church, lost his right arm. That's my great-great-grandfather. He deserted, along with a brother, on 10/1/62, and they stayed gone for about 4 or 5 months. And they did go back. Lincoln declared some kind of an amnesty. They needed a break, or the crops needed to be brought in or something, and they needed to get home, so they went home. They came back, and they were mustered out later, so I guess that's an honorable discharge. These are the battles that they were in: Round Mountain, Chickamauga, Missionary Ridge, New Hope Church, Pine Top, Smyrna, Jonesboro, Franklin, Stone River, Browns Gap. A lot of this was under Sherman's command, down through the Western Front. I make a big deal out of that. Jacob, the East, and these three, the West. There's another hypothesis I'm going to throw out. I think Jacob, when he left, it was under duress, and I don't think he had much contact with the family through the war year, before the war and through the war years. When they finally did reconnect after the war, and I think it was Jacob who who came north to join the family, they were amazed, first of all, that 2 of them had lost. They had all been wounded. I didn't mention that. The wounds for Conrad and August were of a lesser nature in the thigh and in the hand. The hand wound for Conrad did ruin his career as an artist, though. But when they got together for the first time, they noticed and they shared war stories. But the big thing they were concerned about was, did we really fight against each other? I mean, we were on different sides, but could we have opposed each other on the battlefield? And as they covered the territory that they fought in, they were so relieved that at least they weren't opposing each other in any of the same battles. And again, I say this because I don't think, I'll go back to my original statement, that the Seither brothers had issues with each other. Jacob decided to leave, and he did his thing, and I know I'm repeating, but the other three stayed together, but they were so concerned that about each other's welfare, well-being. In my research, I came across this quote. It was actually put together, some of this came from my father and a cousin of his. It's impossible for us not to analyze, or to us, well, no, to understand a motivation, whether it was out of a firm conviction of the issues, or whether it was a response to the military adventurism, which seems to be a part of their heritage. That's kind of where I got going with why did this all happen. With regard to this split, my first hypothesis is that they really didn't have enough time in this country before the war to be that affected by the politics and the discussions about the issue. They were just concerned with surviving here in Campbell County as farmers primarily, and as a saloon keeper next to St. John's Church. And I'm told that the men would go there after Mass on Sunday. I hope the Lord approved of that. But so they were. I think where I was here. Okay, so they were living in this area, but they weren't really into the national scene and the discussion, I don't think. So it could hardly be about some of that. The oldest son, Jacob, already given you one of my thoughts, but there is another one. He fell in love with a girl in Louisiana. Married her after the war, had 2 children, and they became school teachers. But I don't think, in his case, he actually, left because of any serious problem with his brothers. And the capper to all this is where I'll leave it. You can ask questions if you want to prolong this. The capper to all this is 1898. There was a reunion marched by a parade in downtown Cincinnati. And it was a reunion of the Grand Army of the Republic, the Army of the North. And they were to march through town to celebrate their reunion. Jacob said, or shows up, in his gray uniform. And they said, or it was agreed, that they would all walk together. Now they were not embarrassed by it. They were fine. But apparently the local paper got hold of it, and there was excitement in the articles that followed, and also in the parade, the people watching the parade. How could this guy have the whatever to do this? Which I think points to another thing in his personality, though. He did things because he wanted to assert himself, and this didn't bother him, and it didn't bother his brothers. In fact, they supposedly made the statement, "Why would it? We were brothers, and we love each other." As a result of that, here's a picture on the heels of that. From left to right is Jacob, George, Conrad, and August. This is a picture supposedly taken at about around that time of the parade. The Seither brothers, a house divided, I think not. Thank you. Question. Got a question?
Have you read Lee's Tigers?
No. I have not read it. I've got a long way to go. I'm still working on the volume or one of the 5,000 books written about Lincoln. Got a few to go. Yes.
On the ones that fought for the Union, especially the one that was wounded, he probably collected a pension.
He did.
And could you ever find whether he had joined a GAR or a GAR post? There was one in Dayton, Kentucky.
If he did, I'm not aware of that, but it seems likely. I mean, it was in the area.
Yeah.
They all came back. The three that fought for the North came back to this area, and they did their thing, farming, the saloon, even I think a grocery store in Newport. But they stayed local. Yeah. It's likely. I don't know that for sure, though.
I have a book and also a medal from the 1898 reunion in Cincinnati.
Does it belong to one of my relatives? I'll take it.
It's actually a medal that was given to the participants.
Really? Interesting. I don't know for sure, but it sounds like it. Yes.
I noticed someone was in Franklin, I take it that's Franklin, Tennessee.
Yes.
Yeah, there's also a book, The Widow of the South,
Okay.
a woman whose house was taken for the commanding officer, but anyway, and a lot of people were buried on her farm, and she looked after the graves and took care of them
Right,
for her
right.
entire life.
Right.
And it talks about the battle,
Oh,
too,
yeah.
Franklin, so it's a good book.
Yeah, okay.
There's 5 generals.
I'll get around to that one
Yeah,
someday, too.
dying on her porch.
I know August is buried in Evergreen
Yes, he
Cemetery.
is.
Do you know where the other is?
I think, well, I don't know where Jacob, he's buried in the south, somewhere in Louisiana. But the other two, plus wives and like the patriarch of the family, they're right over here at beside St. Joe's.
Okay.
Or St. Joe's Cemetery next to St. John's, I'm sorry. Am I correct with that?
Yeah.
St. Joseph's Cemetery next to St. John's. I think that's where they are. I get confused, Roger. I didn't mean you know. Yes, it is.
There's a site called Find a Grave. You can put a name in there.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm not sure, but this is where I think there is definitely one or two buried at Evergreen, and then St. John or St. Joe's next to St. John Joseph's. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Are you related to a Magdalena, your mom's, Santos?
Magdalena.
She went to St. Philip's? Magdalena Santos.
You know, my grandmother's name was Helena. She was a Huck, H-U-C-K, Huck. Well, there's different pronunciations, you know. I'm a Seither, but there's Seithers and different pronunciations. We all put up with that. But Huck and Hook and all of that, I didn't know what it was. But I don't remember that name ever being bantered about. There's a lot of cousins and a lot of second, third.
I just interviewed a woman
Oh,
whose
really?
name was Magdalena Santos,
Okay.
who lived in Melbourne. Her father had a farm. It just sounds so familiar.
Give her the job. Good lady, I'm sure.
There was a Santos that actually had like a floral shop in
Carl, that was my uncle.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that was my uncle. My mother's younger brother.
Was Karen your cousin?
Karen Santos? Yes, she's first cousin. Yes, Paul's Karen.
I didn't know that.
We used to call that.
I didn't know that Carol and Karen were related. Those Bellevue girls.
Yes, that'll be fun.
Now we're going to start our business meeting, so this time I'd like to call upon Steve to give us our treasurer's report.
Not a lot of activity in August. We only had income of $120.42 and expenses of $208.57. So our beginning balance was $11,223.33, and we wound up the month at $11,135.18. And of course, we had our 49 cents of interest.
Okay, Jan Muir couldn't be here tonight, so Richard's got his minutes.
I'll
Last
read the
month.
minutes out, I know it's been a while, so I'll just go kind of quickly, but at our meeting at the James Taylor Mansion, President Reese introduced the meeting called, and we heard it talked by Russ Thomas and took a tour. We also did a regular business meeting with the normal reports. Jane read the minutes from the last meeting, we got the treasurer report. We discussed the senior citizen picnic coming up September 16th. We currently have 260 members. I read a report on donations. Marvin discussed cemeteries, specifically the one behind Southern States, and introduced Roger Van Stroh, who helped with that. Jan reported that the newsletter was ready to go out, so I believe everybody should have their newsletter by now. She also discussed the emails and correspondence we received. As of last month, Pam Casefort reported we had over 13,212 veterans records. That's obviously an ongoing project. Steve had scanned a total of 5,700 photographs and is now working on a spreadsheet to help come up with a numbering system and tracking system for them. A History Day will take place March 28th. We do have a meeting on September 19th at the courthouse, the History Day committee, to start the planning, but it should be another good event. But yeah, it's March 28th next year. We do have a great collection of the photographs. We've got the index digitized, so we've got a small start on that project. Jan was going to have a microfilm reader looked at by a repairman. I know it came in, and Ken discussed that in his notes, but the microfilm reader is still an issue to go on. And we will be looking for a couple of new board members in our November elections. They also mentioned that the Bob Evans fundraiser, which was today, so I hope you all took your flyer and had a meal at Bob Evans.
I was there.
We are going to honor Applied Imagination at our December meeting because of the great courthouse replica they gave us. If you haven't seen that, it's wonderful. And then Jan Mueller reported on the last meeting of the Friends of Evergreens where they chose an Adopt a Plot initiative. I know that's going to be ongoing in the future. That's a quick rundown of the meeting minutes. Thank you very much, Richard. Okay, I want to welcome anybody here who came for the first time tonight and thank the City of Wilder for allowing us to use their building again. Okay, we're going to start with our Senior Citizens Picnic, which is coming up this coming week. If you're interested in helping out with volunteering there, we have Jan Ginter, Jan Lester, Martha, and Marvin are volunteering. If you'd like to help us out that day, just stop by the booth, and I'm sure they'd appreciate your help. Let's do some reports. We have anything on gifts and donations, Richard?
At the last board meeting, I did not see any new donations until I was leaving, and somebody mentioned there were a couple of pictures, but I did not get to write down the report, so I will have a full report in October, just a couple photographs to look like.
Okay, thank you. Like we said, History Day meetings on this 19th, he'll represent us. Steve did the treasurer's report. Anything to report on the cemeteries, Marvin?
Yes, Buck Seither and I, with the help of a guy named Everett Harrison, eventually got up to the Winal Cemetery that we've been trying to get to for about 5 years. We wound up going up about 1,700 feet of the worst road in Campbell County, believe that. But as a result, we found at least 5 new graves that have markers. The graves aren't new, but the markers are not information that we had previous to this. And I think Buck and I are going to try to get some volunteers to maybe clean that up a little bit so that there's 35 stones standing on end, just field stones, and the people that know who were there have long died. So they say there's a Bible somewhere that's got this, you know how that story goes. But there's also the story, there's an 8-foot tall guy buried there. And we showed the spot, and the grave looked about the same size as the rest, but you know how stories go. So anyhow, we did get to go see a new cemetery. We're getting new information all the time on other cemeteries. We're going to change the names of some. We misnamed them through Russ Stevens' research or something like that. And kind of the interesting thing we're finding, the first grave buried in a lot of these family cemeteries was not necessarily the owner of the property. it was usually a brother-in-law, so I guess there's some connection yet that we have brother-in-laws that need a grave on your own property or something. I don't know, maybe that's just my speculation. But yeah, we're still doing some active work, so if anybody's interested in giving a helping hand, let us know.
Okay, thank you. Jan put out the newsletter. I hope everybody got theirs. She did a great job as usual. Since she's not here, we don't have anything on correspondence or emails. Do we have any report on veterans tonight?
No report.
We are doing some office cleaning, and Pam and Dan Christian are working on the offices. They're doing a nice job. And the room, as you come up the stairway, the actual room, we have our cameras in, and then we also have been working in the main office. Steve, you got any report on the picture albums?
Just plugging along. I'm almost through that first album now of getting them all numbered and
Okay. Jim?
Ken, I did want to mention on the gray file, we did digitize the index, and I just recently completed naming that. So the paper index page is now on the digitized one, they match in terms of years and so forth. And so we have it on a thumb drive, and then we also, of course, have the paper copy.
Okay, very good. We don't have an Evergreen Cemetery report tonight. Our microfilm reader, we have 2 or 3 of them. None of them work very well. In fact, none of them work at all. We've tried to get it repaired. The repair cost was not the issue. The fact that parts couldn't be found to repair it. It's that old. We got a bid on a new one. We kind of put together a list of what we wanted it to be like, but obviously our list was too big. They wanted $5,000 for this microfilm reader. That didn't even include the computer that went with it. So that's kind of, I'm not spending $5,000 on a microfilm reader. That's the bottom line. So we're going to have to look at this and decide what direction we want to go, find some other bids, or just get a reader that just reads and does nothing else, so we can have something up there to use. But unless we get some donations, I think that's not going to go much farther than where we are right at the moment. Our sign out front, we've been complaining about it, that when City of Alexandria decided that the Conservation District sign was too close to the road, they complained to the fiscal court. The fiscal court took action to take both our signs down, and they combined them, and our sign ended up on the bottom with smaller letters, so a lot of people think we don't have a sign anymore at all. As you come down the road, you can only read so much as you're going past. So most people don't get beyond the Conservation District and don't even realize we're on that sign at all anymore. So we filed a complaint, and so far it's gone nowhere. So we're going to see if we can get beyond that at some point, have the sign completely changed some way, so people realize we're still in the courthouse. We are doing some reorganization in the offices, and down the road, probably for the next year, we're going to try to reorganize the library, reorganize the main office, and reorganize the museum. All of which is going to be, involve a lot of work. We may ask for help along the way. I would like to see some new display cases, but there again, looking for display cases, I found out that they don't sell them anymore. That's mostly older people have display cases that they're not buying them anymore. All the stores I went to said they discontinued selling any kind of curio cabinets at all because there's no call for them. Most of these guys said they didn't even sell one the entire last year. So they can't afford to waste space on the floor for something that's not going to sell anyway. So they would be willing to look up one from a company and special order it for it. All of them begin $1,000 a piece. You can't find anything below that. So we may either forget the whole idea or ask for donations to help cover some of these cases. We could go out and buy antique cases, but the problem with those is that they'll all be different. Most of them aren't lit. Most of them have limited, you can see inside, but most of them have smaller pieces of glass than the new ones do. So there again, I don't know, it might be cost prohibitive, we may not even do it at all. So we'll keep you filled in on what's going on with those. Future meetings, we're going to be here in October for Marty Shaler He's going to talk about World War I flying aces. I just saw him the other day. Steve Battistone will be one in charge that night. I am not going to be here that evening. October the 17th, the Dayton Festival, Fall Festival is going on. On the 18th is the following day is Camp Springs Herbst Tour. On the 12th, we'll be back here again, and Don Tolzman of the Hamilton County Genealogical Society will be here talking about researching our German ancestors. The majority of us have German ancestors. And that's also our election night. And then finally, we're going to finish out the year here with Hills of Kentucky Dulcimers playing for us. We'll have our holiday social. And then finally, we're going to give out a plaque to apply imagination for the beautiful courthouse building they did for us. So that's how the year is going to end. We're still working. Steve and I got together. We're working on future meetings. Hopefully, we'll have 2 or 3 of those finalized before the October meeting, so we can make some reports on what's going to go on in January, February, March.
And we're still looking for ideas. If anybody has a place they want to go see, if you have somebody that you'd like to have come as a speaker, let us know and get us the contact information, and we'll be in touch with them.
Also downtown Newport, the Nina and the Pinta, replicas of the boats that came to the United States first in 1492. We're down there if you'd like to go tour them. It's $8 to get in, and they're open from 9 to 6 p.m. So if you're interested, come up and look at this.
We're here for like 10 days or something,
Yeah,
I think.
about that. I'm sure Green Day will be a lot of school kids there, so you probably want to go before or after school. Otherwise, you spend most of your time waiting in line. Anybody else have anything else they want to discuss this evening?
Jan Lester asked me to make a couple announcements. She said remind everybody that at the Newport branch on September 17th, Barry Lynette is going to be there signing copies of his book, I Hunt Killer series. He's going to be there, and she thought maybe some would like to go and see that. The other event is in October. It's October 16th, 17th, and 18th at the Eastgate Holiday Inn and Conference Center. It's an inaugural regional conference of the Ohio River National Freedom Corridor. I walk with bold courage, connecting communities with shared stories of the Underground Railroad. So if anyone's interested in that, that's taking place mid-October. I'll leave that here on the table too, if you're interested in that.
Yes.
Actually, one thing I just saw on the news today, the Marianne Theater in Bellevue, apparently they've got a developer now, and the plan is to make it to a brewery a lot of years before that gets finished, but at least there's a plan now, so it's another step forward.
All right, well, thank you for coming, everybody. Everybody have a safe trip home.